Well, first of all, some of you might be asking yourselves, what is velveting? Well, that's a really good question. Velveting meat is a process of tenderizing cheap cuts of meat popularized by Chinese takeaways and restaurants. I don't know who invented it. I'm sure it's not just a Chinese thing, but the Chinese have definitely made it well known. So I've already made a couple of videos about velveting meat before, but this one is slightly different because some very helpful people have left some suggestions in the comments of the other videos telling me how they do it and slightly different ways that might make the velveting process even more effective. So the process of velveting is actually quite simple. What we're essentially doing is adding sodium bicarbonate, or baking soda I think you call it in America, and adding it to your sliced meat and just leaving it to kind of just soak into the meat, which will break down the fibres over a little bit of time, and this is going to give us plump, juicy meat. Anything strongly acidic or strongly alkali has the ability to break down fibres in meat. Obviously you've got to use something that's palatable and edible, and sodium bicarbonate or baking soda fits that description. Today's cut of meat is a good old beef brisket. Now brisket is a fine cut of meat, but really only for slow cooks, stews, that sort of thing. It's not something you'd naturally put in a stir fry untreated because it would just shrivel up, go tough, and it would be very, very chewy indeed. Here we have our brisket. I'm going to cut it into two sections like so, so that therefore we can start to cut across the grain. To maximise our tenderness, it's always good to cut across the grain. And I'm going to just cut thin slices. It helps if you've got a sharp knife. So you want something a little bit like that. That's perfect for stir frying. Okay, it's just nice and thin. It's going to cook really, really quickly. It's going to sear and cook very, very quickly. But although this looks quite juicy and plump because it's raw, trust me, when we fry this off unvelveted, it's going to go chewy. Okay, now to the velveting bit. I'm going to add half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda to this one. And I'm going to just give it a nice stir to mix it in. What you can do, if you want, is add a tiny bit of water at this point, just to carry the baking soda into the meat itself. Okay. Give it a good mix. You can tell that the texture is immediately starting to change, and that's the sodium bicarbonate working its little bit of magic. So I'm going to give the velveting process half an hour to an hour to work its magic. You can leave it in longer, but today I don't have the time because I'm making the video, and it will tenderize it more, but there is a point to where all the active ingredients are actually used up, so leaving it overnight shouldn't really make any difference unless you put too much sodium bicarbonate. Which leads me to my next point. A lot of the naysayers, the people who don't like this process, is because they've tried it and they complain about a metallic, horrible, chemically aftertaste. And that's because they've probably used too much of the sodium bicarbonate or baking soda, because they've assumed that the more you put in, the more tender your meat is going to be. Now, this may be the case, but there is a point where that sodium bicarbonate is going to flavour the meat so much that it's going to be, well, horrible. You wouldn't put a teaspoon of sodium bicarbonate in your mouth in one go, would you? So I recommend half a teaspoon per 8 ounces of meat. That's plenty enough. If you put any more than that, then you are going to create issues with flavour and aftertaste. I mean, nobody's going to like that. And now we come to that vital change that I was on about. So this brings us on to the one big change in the technique I'm using today. At this point in my previous videos, I would be marinating the meat in sesame oil, soy sauce, and a little bit of sugar. to give that flavour, and also to reduce the sodium bicarbonate taste. But to be fair, everybody marinates their meat when you do stir fry, so it's not a cheat, it's just what we do. However, one very useful person, I forget their name, but thank you so much, you know who you are, said that by putting soy sauce in, you're diminishing the effect of the velveting, because soy sauce is acidic. And obviously when you put acid and alkali together, they're going to cancel each other out, which will also stop or slow down the velveting process. Now, I'd never thought of this before, so this actually should be a lot more tender than my previous efforts. I'm really excited. I've not tried this yet. I've held back until making this video, and we're going to see how much difference it makes, because to be fair, my velveting process before worked. So this is going to blow my mind, right? Well, we'll soon find out. Right guys, it's been probably a bit over half an hour now. Let me try to get this in focus. This one is the velveted meat. You can see the difference, can't you? The unvelveted meat looks like standard meat. If anything, at this point, it probably looks a little bit more appetizing, the unvelveted meat. But then again, we're not going to eat it like this, are we? Right, it's time for the stir fry test. Get your woks ready. So we've got our wok smoking hot. Little bit of cooking oil. Swirl that around, get it nicely coated. Okay, so I'm going to use some tongs. I'm going to do a couple of pieces of meat from the I'm going to cook it all at the same time, just so that it all get as close to cooking time as possible. Right, so the non-velveted meat, I'm going to put a couple of pieces in, like so, just as a kind of a test. And then a couple of slices of the velveted. There you go. Literally just going to fry them off for a couple of minutes. There's no flavourings on this. I might add some, actually, you know what? I'm going to add a bit of salt and pepper, because that's not going to alter the texture at this point. But if I'm going to taste it, I might as well have nice tasting meat. Like I said, I have not marinated them, because I don't want that to be affecting the results. Okay, so searing those off, being so thin, it'll take seconds, minutes. Now, can you see, I don't want to lead you, but there is a difference already in the texture. This is kind of like smooth and kind of taut, whereas this is more the velveted stuff. The velveted meat is a different texture again. We know this works. I've proven it in my other videos, but I want to know how much it works now we haven't added the soy sauce, because soy sauce, as we said before, soy sauce is acidic. I didn't know that. I didn't even consider that. The soy sauce is acidic, so when you marinate it, we're restricting the amount of velveting that happens. Okay, right. I think that will do. There you go, guys. Right, so I'm gonna try this piece first. Chopstick skills are lacking right now. Right. It's not actually awful. But it's taking some chewing, which is kind of a little bit of a hindrance if you're doing stir fries, because you just want to pick it up and eat it. Right. Velveted meat. Yeah. It's soft. It's almost melting in the mouth. It's juicy. That's the biggest difference, I think. I could live with the unvelveted meat not being quite as tender, but it's a little bit drier. It's like eating a bit of roast beef, yeah, which essentially this is a brisket. That's what you do. You don't roast it so much as you pot roast it or you stew it, but it's a little bit like that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not a stir fry kind of meat. Whereas the velveted one is so soft and juicy, and also the side product of the sodium bicarbonate, it kind of crusts a little bit, which gives it a slight kind of crisp edge, which is quite a nice texture. The taste, you can taste a little bit of the sodium bicarbonate, all right? That, I'm never going to deny that, but it's not overpowering. There's no marinade on this. A marinade on this will take that away completely. And some people will turn around and say, well, you're cheating, you're using sauces. Am I using sauces on a stir fry dish? Oh my gosh. It's like using steroids, isn't it? Of course you use sauces. It's not like we're trying to trick you and then mask it with a sauce. The whole point is you have a stir fry dish with a sauce. And even if you kind of just have a marinade and a simple bit of soy sauce or whatever into it, that's lovely. You're not going to have this ever plain. Anyway, I'm ranting again. Don't use too much sodium bicarbonate or baking soda, because you don't need to, and B, it will make that taste come if you have too much of it. People complain of it being chemically and metallically and whatever. It's probably because they've gone put loads in it because they think, oh, you need a lot to make it tender. You don't. Half a teaspoon, guys, half a teaspoon on about 8 ounces of meat, I think it was. The rest of the meat I'm not going to waste. I'm going to turn it into a beef and onion stir fry with a little bit of ginger and garlic. I'm going to marinate it first. To the rest of the meat, I'm going to make a little bit of marinade just by adding about half a tablespoon of light soy sauce, half a teaspoon of sugar, and about a teaspoon of sesame oil. Give it a good mix. Ordinarily you would leave it a while, but I'm hungry. I'm going to cook it straight off. Normally I'd use white onions, but I actually only have red onions today, but that should be really nice. I'm also going to use a couple of cloves of garlic. Just going to crush them and just roughly chop them like that. That should release all the juices and flavours into the dish really nicely. And also some ginger, just a little bit. I'm going to cut off the gnarly bits. And of course, we do not cut the skin off. Although we do cut the gnarly bits off, like so. I'm just going to finely chop. So this is a really, really simple recipe. We're going to put a little bit of cooking oil in. About 2 tablespoons normally does the trick. Get it hot. Get it swirled across your pan. Make sure you coat your pan. That helps with the non-stick kind of properties of your wok or your pan or whatever. Get it fairly smoking hot. Okay, so the beef goes in. Be careful not to overload your pan or your wok. This is about the limit of what I can put in. If in doubt, make it in smaller batches. So the technique to this is to sear it, seal it up, and then turn it over. Don't just keep moving it for the sake of moving it, because you'll dissipate the heat too much. Right, so we've sealed one side, I'm sealing the other side now. Yeah. The stir frying bit comes in a minute. At this point, I'm going to season a little bit. Bit of salt and pepper. Now we can start stir frying, do a little tossing. You don't have to do the tossing, but it's nice to if you can. And now I'm going to add my onions, my garlic, and my ginger. And now we can go into full-on stir-frying mode. Like I said, if you're on an induction, you can't do that, or electric hobs can't do that, but that's fine. It's not absolutely necessary. season a little bit more. Dash of light soy sauce, not too much. Such a simple dish. Okay, the garlic and the ginger is just so aromatic. I'm also going to add a little bit of dark soy sauce. This is optional, but I like it. It gives it a little bit of colour. It's not as salty as light soy sauce. It adds a tiny bit of sweetness. There you go. It's that colour. It's lovely, isn't it? This makes it so appetizing. I'm going to add a little bit of hot water to make the sauce. Not too much, because I don't want it to be too saucy. I want it to be quite an unctuous, not thick, but medium. I don't want it watery either, if you know what I mean. I'm gonna get that up to temperature. I'm gonna add some corn flour or cornstarch slurry. Corn flour, cornstarch are the same thing, guys, just on different sides of the Atlantic. Add that in now. I'm not gonna put all of this in because I don't want it too thick. You can sort of stir it in, get it to start to thicken, and then decide how you want to go. We're not far off there though. Lovely. Look at that. Nice onions and beef in a tasty little sauce. There you go. Get your taste buds ready. Moment of truth, as they say. Let's try. Well, the beef's tender. The onion still has some bite to it, which is great. Taste of the garlic and the ginger especially is coming through. Just warms it up, if you know what I mean. That'd be nice with some chilies as well. Beautiful. Really simple dish to go with some rice. Boiled rice is what I normally have, but fried rice is good also. Beautiful. Right guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I hope you've learnt something, because velveting is really simple if you know how. And it'll help you save money because you can buy those cheaper cuts of meat and you can turn them into stir fries. Just go easy on the sodium bicarbonate or baking soda. Don't use too much. Have a little play, see what works for you, and come back and tell me how it goes in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.